I bought this guitar from a thrift store for about $50. It's a Burswood JW41F, and honestly, I don't know that much about Burswood or this guitar for that matter. I didn't know that when I bought it, and when I took it home, there's just kind of like a lack of information online about Burswood, but I do know when I held it in the store, it sounded pretty good, even though it had 3 broken strings, a broken tuner. There was this weird brown goop on the fretboard and on some spots on the body. There were what seemed like furniture paint, like white furniture paint, just scratched all over the body. And yeah, there are some scratches on it. There are some parts that are missing finish, just up and down the guitar. But when I played the strings that it had, I felt like it sounded good. It had pretty good tone and sustain as well. It didn't have any cracks, and the neck is kind of a thicker C-shaped neck. It felt pretty good in my hand. And so pretty much I thought this is pretty good for what's probably like a cheap laminated guitar, at least sound-wise and feel-wise. It was pretty beat up, but that's what I was thinking when I eventually bought it and I took it home. Most of those bad things that I just listed were easily fixed by a microfiber towel and some water. That brown goop and the paint marks on it just came right off. And then obviously I applied some fretboard oil, I changed the tuners, I changed the strings, and I also wiped the guitar down with some compound, and you get pretty much what you see here on camera. My bad for not taking before pictures, unfortunately I forgot. But despite all that work I did to try and restore this to playable and as good of a condition that I could get it to, it will never sound as good as my Yamaha AC3R, which is an all solid body. If I really wanted to get a better sounding guitar, I wouldn't have bought this guitar in the first place. I probably would have gone with like a Taylor or a Martin, a Gibson, something just in general more expensive. But that isn't what this video is about. This brings me to a concern that I have that I've noticed in the guitar playing community. I've seen it through various forums and websites, and it's that a lot of people seem to be afraid to tinker or work on their guitars. But why is that? I'm gonna make an analogy here and compare guitars to cars, specifically sports cars. Both of them are kind of designed for the user to have fun with them, and the person who owns them, the user, wants them to look good, they want them to feel good, sound good, you know, etc. In a lot of cases that can mean feeling better about owning one that's more expensive. For example, owning a Honda to owning a Porsche. I'm not dogging on Hondas, I love S2000s and NSXs. But normally if a car or guitar is more expensive, it's using better materials or it has a higher quality, it sounds better, you know, it could be a lot of reasons. And so I feel like there's a correlation between something being expensive, like a car or a guitar, and feeling uneasy about working on it yourself. People would much rather just send it off to a specialist like a mechanic for cars or a luthier for guitars. And in the case of cars, I can empathize a little bit. Cars, you know, use a whole lot of moving parts all at once. They're pretty complicated, especially if you're just getting into them. Guitars, on the other hand, I feel like are so simple in comparison. But for some reason I see all the time, like on forums, people saying, oh, to just take your guitar to a luthier if you want something done with it. And that seems to be the default answer to that. If you want something done, if it needs work, take it to a shop or take it to a luthier. I myself have been told that by 2 people who are more experienced guitar owners and players than me. People have been playing for years and I've only been playing for maybe like 1.5 to 2 years. But it's funny because in the past like 3 months, at this point, I've done more work and tinkering on guitars than they probably have in how many years they've been owning them. And most likely a lot of other guitar players who've been playing for years. I'm not trying to say that like it's a competition. I'm just trying to address the people with this video, the people who have never like adjusted their truss rod or maybe even haven't even changed their strings because they're afraid to or uneasy to. I understand feeling that way with an expensive guitar, so I have a simple solution. Just get a cheap one. I want these people to understand that there's so much that they're missing out on by not doing this work to their own guitars. I feel like when you treat your guitar like a project that never ends, because, you know, stuff is always going to have to be replaced on these, it changes the dynamic and the relationship that you have with it as something in your possession. Sure, your relationship with your instrument can be built by playing it, but there's also that other side of taking care of it. It just kind of unlocks this other level of relationship with your instrument that I feel like is comparable to taking care of a plant or taking care of a pet. And I think there's a lot of meaning in having that kind of relationship with your instrument. You start to look at it as not something that you just own, but something that you've in a way created. For example, this is my Epiphone Les Paul Traditional Pro 4. It might not seem like I've done a lot to this guitar, but I've changed the strings, I've adjusted the action with the truss rod, I've sanded the fretboard and polished them, I've adjusted the pickup height, the pickup pole height, the bridge. I even installed these pickup covers that the guitar just doesn't come with from the factory. I love this thing and I love playing it, and that's in large part due to all the work that I've done to it. Objectively speaking, you might not compare this to a Gibson at all, but I would actually say with where I've gotten it that it could go up against a Gibson or just in general a more expensive guitar in terms of playability. Anyway, I'm not telling you to just go and get any cheap guitar that you find and try and fix it up. You could, but it's definitely worth it more when you find one and you see the potential in it, like I did with this one, in its tone and sustain and whatnot. Once you do and you get it into that, you know, condition that you want, it'll feel even more rewarding since, you know, you did that yourself. You brought out that potential that was in the guitar and made it better. And at the same time, you built up your experience, you know, you learned new things. That'll give you confidence leading into the next thing that you do to it, whatever that is. And lastly, while doing all of that, you're saving yourself money, because instead of sending it to a shop, which will charge you labor fees and whatnot, you're doing it yourself. To cap things off, I feel like there's just a lot of guitar players that do not want to dive into this kind of stuff because they're afraid to, or, you know, they're not motivated to, whatever reason. I feel like a lot of people in my generation specifically don't really have like a hands-on kind of hobby. I feel like that kind of hobby is kind of dying out, honestly. And I think getting a cheap guitar and working on it and trying to improve on it is a great way to get yourself into that kind of thing, whether it's you're looking for like a craft hobby or you're looking to get into guitars. And even if you have been playing guitars and you just have not really done any of it and you want to unlock your journey with them even further. Thanks for watching and making it this far, and I'll see you in the next one.